Hello, everyone. My name is Hamid Ghafoor, and I lead BDO social housing team across the north of England. As many of you will be aware, BDO have recently issued a social housing barometer, which looks at key trends in terms of risks for social housing providers. And in terms of the publication of that document, we are interviewing key individuals within the sector, seeing what their views are around those key trends moving forward. So with me today, I've got John Ghader, who is Chief Executive of Prima Group based in Liverpool. John, just want to do a brief introduction about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, it's, like you said, Hamid, I'm a Group Chief Executive of Prima Group, which is made up of 3 organisations. So we merged with Leasehold Community Homes in 2017. So it's Peerhead Housing Association, a traditional housing association, Leasehold Community Homes, which was a stock transfer, traditional stock transfer, and we've got Prima Commercial, which is our commercial arm. We're not unique in that sense. Commercial, we've got some students accommodation, key worker accommodation, commercial retail space. So the commercial arm generally oversees that, manages that, but also they do our assets growth and development services as well. So and we sell them on to other organisations as well internally to the group.
Brilliant.
We've got about just under 3,000 units.
Great. Thanks, John. So, John, just in terms of the last 12 months, quite challenging, and it'd be really interesting to understand how you feel Prima's dealt with the challenges, and particularly in terms of when COVID hit, and how ready you think you were in terms of dealing with some of those challenges. And what's interesting with your organisation is the bit you've just said there in terms of the combination of the different entities that which has been relatively recent, hasn't it, in terms of the effectively the merger and the sort of work around that. And do you feel that actually what you did around when you combined the group actually supported you in terms of dealing with some of those challenges when COVID hit?
Yeah, it certainly gave us the scale and the capacity. So over since 2017, we've invested quite heavily in our IT and digital strategy. We did quite a bit of work around customer profile, and so we basically identified 3 cohorts of customers: those that can but just don't use technology and just needed a bit of a nudge; those that can but needed a bit of support; and those that just can't. And it wasn't a cost saving exercise for us. It was about releasing resources to the front line to help those more vulnerable customers. So we were sort of 3 years into a 5-year strategy. Like I say, we invested heavily in our IT. We always were working towards a flexible working program, agile working. We kitted out the staff. So when the pandemic hit, we were able to mobilise all of our staff, including the call centre, within 48 hours.
Yeah.
So we shut the office on the 23rd of March, and we've had a few teething problems like everybody else, but we were able to. We were in a really good position because of the investment that we've made early doors, and we've since added to that investment. So we've looked at how software and hardware can support us, especially in providing repairs and maintenance, and not being intrusive in people's homes, because they were obviously conscious, and we were conscious that those that were shielding didn't want people sort of anywhere near them. So we sort of planned about how we could make that a little bit more sort of from a health and safety point of view, a bit more customer friendly, but allow us to continue to deliver some services.
And do you feel? I'm originally from Liverpool, as I'm sure you know, and I know some of the areas your properties are in are quite deprived areas, quite challenging areas. And in terms of how you've been able to deal with that bit around the community piece, and how do you feel that's come along
Yeah, one of our objectives is strategic partnerships, as you'll know, Hamid, and we've been working in partnership and in collaboration with different types of partners since the merger happened in 2017 with LISO, because it's a community-based organisation. It's because it's concentrated. It's a lot easier to work with customers, and we support a small organisation called Wirral Development Trust, which is a charitable organisation who do a lot of community initiatives, including getting people into work. That they took over the library from the local authority, so adults and junior literacy were issues on the estate.
Yeah.
So we already had that sort of those building blocks in place with partnerships. But during the pandemic, those partnerships with the third sector really improved. So, food banks,
well, brilliant.
Working with the local authority, working with organisations better placed than us to deliver that. We improved our relationship in terms of our communities. But one thing I would say is that we quickly produced a recovery plan, and we called it the 4 R's. So it was response, recovery, resilience, because what we established was some communities more resilient than others, and we're still working through trying to understand why that is. Some neighbourhoods, some communities really struggled, whereas others were sort of we're able to manage just with a little bit more support from us, whereas some communities, they needed a lot more support. And then the final bit to our recovery plan is the Renaissance period. So it's post the pandemic. What will work and life look like? So I felt that because we're a community-based organisation anyway, I did feel that we were in a really good place. But partnerships is something that we've developed more of, and we're still working with those organisations. And certainly, during the second lockdown, it was a lot easier to get initiatives off the ground. We've since spoken to our board about having a slush fund to help to financially support those community initiatives. So some of the stuff that we're doing ourselves, and some of it we're doing in partnership, because, like I say, they're better placed to deliver.
And because you've got those partnerships, and that gives you a better understanding of what those community needs are, doesn't it? And because the sense I get about your organisation is that you're quite agile and flexible, and you've been able to, because you've got that understanding. Because always feels quite. I mean, the word I'm using is tight, but you know what I mean in terms of you understand your communities, and therefore it's really interesting what you talk about in terms of those strategic partnerships, because it's not a case, sometimes there's always a case of where organizations go in and we're leading this and we don't really need to use anyone else, but that's not your approach at all, is it?
No, one of the things our board are quite clear about, and I'm quite clear about, is that we stick to what we're good at, and then we work with people who are better placed than us to deliver those services that just isn't part of our DNA. So we don't create industries where if we haven't got the skill set, then we don't bring that skill set in. What we do is we work in partnership, and we're not precious about that, because I do think that this getting a greater bang for your buck working in partnership, and also the reach. Some organisations will have greater reach than us. They're anchored in those communities better than we are, and the partnership bit is one key thing that we just recently reviewed. Our objectives and partnerships is key for us, and it's something that we're working on going forward. Certainly the pandemic has relayed back to us that we've got challenging times ahead, and although we are financially resilient and strong, and we could go it alone, like I say, I think we could do so much more in partnership. And there's a lot of common themes, and what we don't want to do is duplicate time and effort. If you put yourselves in the customer's shoes, they don't want different people knocking on their doors. So it's about trying to join up those initiatives. So that's what we're working on.
So in terms of everything that's happened over the last 9 months or so in particular, what was your biggest challenge you feel in terms of that, in terms of what's happened in the pandemic, and how did you deal with that?
Okay, so there was a number of challenges. Obviously, the challenge of mobilising the workforce, but like I say, we did have a few initial teething problems, but we managed to mobilise the workforce within 48 hours. So it was trying to maintain a level of service. Compliance, health and safety was a major issue, because people weren't going anywhere, and obviously they were using, the utilities more, and repairs, although routine repairs basically reduced and the request for them reduced. In terms of health and safety, we were getting a lot of calls for gas boilers failing and stuff like that, and so compliance was a big issue for us, but we managed to work with the residents, reassure them. We put protocols in place. We worked with our contractors. Communication was really key. So that was a challenge. Just making sure that customers felt assured. Second one was staff health and well-being, and that still is a challenge for us. One of the things that I've realised is that not everybody lives in a property that's got the space to work from home, and not everybody has got the best outlook, or a garden, or could just walk out of their door and just take that sort of break, and they can't differentiate between work and life, and especially those some of our staff who've got young children, and when the schools were closed, so that was really difficult. So we have had quite a few people suffering with their health and well-being. So communication again with staff. We introduced a lot of social activities, and made sure our managers were in regular contact. Again, communication. So we introduced video logs rather than just words, because it was good to see people. I think people benefited from seeing especially the exec team, in terms of their faces. So we've had regular communications, two-way communication. We had some social events. I suppose the other challenge was how do you maintain an effective business and ensure governance and assurance and the audit trail and all of that. But that's worked really well for us. What it made us do is streamlined our governance. It streamlined our agendas. We've got the space to be more strategic and have those strategic conversations. Obviously, the details still needs to happen, but we were able to clarify that, because sometimes, the board were complaining that too much information. And in the early days, it was, the response to the pandemic and all of that, and it was all about that. So the governance thing, they still missed the interaction, because we had 5 new board members join us just before the pandemic hit. So they've not really been able to build relationships with the existing members. So they were the key challenges. And then obviously, from a customer point of view, up to date, we've done about 16,000 welfare calls. So people were just generally lonely and felt isolated, and they welcomed just that general call from our customer experience advisors. And then the other thing that came out of the woods was about 130 customers that we never interacted with, because they were either self-employed or in employment, and they just dealt with us online mainly. So they were able to access through the customer app all the services that they needed, but suddenly they found themselves furloughed or unemployed, and they've never accessed welfare advice or support before. So developing those relationships with those customers, and we've continued with those customers, and they're job ready. So we've really ramped up our approach to getting people into work.
And what was interesting in the barometer was some of the stuff that came out around some stuff around the future, around the green agenda, some stuff now around government policy. And I think what's been interesting when I've had these discussions with other people recently, in terms of other key people within the sector, they talk about the fact that actually as a sector, we appear to have come out of this really well at the moment, compared to other sectors, but actually there's some massive challenges ahead. So what's your sense of that?
Well, we had an away day a couple of weeks ago, and obviously the day before the away day, the white paper was published. So that, that's got challenges within it. Obviously the new code of governance. There's the carbon neutral agenda. There's the retrofitting agenda, the green agenda, as you called it, Hamid. So what we did was have a conversation with our board about, we've got a lot of challenges to existing stock, but also we've got growth ambitions, and it's how you balance the two out, because you can't forget, your bread and butter, your existing customers. So for me, the challenge is about how we actually deliver on those agendas. But I think going forward, certainly on the green agenda, we've got pre-1919 stock, and we know that you might get them to a band C by improving the boilers, or I don't know, doing loft insulation or cavity wall insulation, or replacing the windows and doors. But for us, that's a big investment that you might not get a return back on. So we're thinking now about the life cycle of those properties, and also that they are 2 up, 2 down, mainly terraced, and the environment and the curtilage needs some concentration on as well. So we're looking at sort of mini regen type initiatives, and we're talking with the city region and the local authorities about how we can package them up. But so to give you an example, in Wavertree, we're cheek to jowl with other associations as well as private landlords and owner occupiers. So you need to include them in that. So for us, it's how you package that and how you deliver a product that's going to, stand the test of time for the next 30, 40, 50 years. And at the same time, how you can create employment and development opportunities for the residents and the neighbourhoods around there. But also in terms of putting money back in people's pockets. So from a financial inclusion point of view, that's a really key challenge for us. The other challenge, and we've been talking about, is the world of work and what that might look like. So like I said earlier, we've not knee-jerk reacted and said we are going to shut our offices down. We've got 3 offices at the moment. We will do a review, and we'll work with our customers about, what's best in terms of the delivery of that service. We were traditionally 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I think we need to review that. One of our other objectives is placing customers and communities first. We're going to revisit that. What does that truly mean? Taking our customers with us, making sure they've got a voice, making sure our staff culturally align to that sort of objective. So doing a lot of work with our staff, and we're still going to invest in our technology, because we have got 2/3 of our residents will want just to interact with us online, or they're not bothered about the face-to-face, but we've got 1/3 of our customers who prefer the face-to-face and the more interaction. So it's about how we release resources to the front line. So I think they're the major challenges. Unemployment, that's going to rocket. That's going to affect the most deprived areas, and we can already see that. I think in Liverpool, they are saying up to about 68% unemployment, which is a major impact on our customers and some of our staff, their partners. And we've got to think that through. So some really meaty challenges there, as well as just making sure we collect the rent and and do the repairs.
But John, in terms of all that, it's almost you talk about some of those challenges, and that's actually behind those challenges is significant cost. So you look at you touched upon the green agenda piece, and some of that stuff is going to cost a significant amount. And what I got a sense from you is that you're going to have a look at the overall asset management strategy you have around those assets and think, well, actually, what's the best thing to do here in terms of fitting that in?
Yeah.
But in terms of, do you think of an element of this, and it's going to be quite challenging for senior management, but also boards, about you're going to have to make choices, aren't you, in terms of what is it that you want to focus on and prioritize?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the conversation we're currently having. We revisited our golden rules and our risk appetite. And, we are still bullish in terms of our risk. And but what we've said is that we can't have all our eggs in one basket. So, our growth ambitions, we want to realise them, because we know that we will have difficult choices to make. We're not in the game to start selling off stock. But if, like, I mentioned those 2 up, 2 down terraced properties, if we need to knock 2 into 1 and do something with the environment and the neighbourhood and the curtilage, then that's something we'll do. But what we'll try and do is replace those units lost, or the numbers lost, with new developments.
Right. Okay.
And also try and increase the overall asset base in terms of value, so we can borrow more to develop more and plough more into our services.
Okay.
And I suppose the other challenge is coming out of the white paper is the right to shared ownership, and there's big elements of that in the affordable housing programme. But we're not shying away from accessing grants just because people will have the right to buy their properties. What we need to do is work through the impact of that, like we did when the voluntary right to buy was being piloted.
Yeah. And probably just useful just to explore a little bit more, again, the piece around the tenant involvement and tenant voice, which is also a big element on the white paper. And my sense is, in terms of your organisation, because of that community focus you've got, this is something that you're already, I mean, compared to others, if you benchmark on others, you are pretty strong on. You talk about LISO and the way LISO is concentrated, but also in terms of because you are a smaller organisation, you're able to have that greater focus. But what but in terms of the tenant piece, I mean, I know you've been in the sector a long time. It's talking like full circle again, isn't it, in terms of where we were 15 years ago? But in terms of your sense around that, and do you think that's do you think it's a game changer? Do you think what do you sense around the tenant bit around in the white paper?
Well, to be honest, I think it's something that we should be doing anyway. So, irrespective of whether it's going to be imposed on us through the white paper, I just think we are a customer facing organisation. It's not just about assets. Without customers, we haven't got a business. So, it's something that should be running right through everything that we do. In terms of how we've approached things, again, we didn't wait for the white paper to come out. We were very. We still got a lot of work to do on customer involvement and especially some of the involvement structures, because other than LISO, we are geographically dispersed, some of our stock. So you're talking about communities and neighbourhoods which require intensive management, and we don't have. There's not many formal associations that have set themselves up. But what we do a governance review every 3 years. So when LISO came along, we reviewed our governance. We've now gone to a common board. We did have a performance committee, and that was basically made up of lay members. But we've now replaced that with a customer board. So we brought in TPAS to support us with that. We've now got 6 members on that board. We do need to do a bit more work to encourage more younger people and people from black and ethnic minorities that represent our communities, but they've really got the bit between the teeth now, and they've started to motor. But what the next stage of that is that, and we've basically said to them, they are a key cog of our governance, so they're not the doers. So we need to think about what our involvement structures are underneath. With LISO, we've already got we've got PETRA, which is Prima Estates Tenants and Residents Association, but that's not been rolled out within the neighbourhoods. We're working on neighbourhood plans, and we're identifying cohorts of people that we work with, including partners, and they're set to go live in early new year. And we've used our drone to video the neighbourhoods, and then there's a talk over with our housing officers. So they're actually going to explain what's in the neighbourhood plans, what's currently there, what's being planned, and the initiatives that we're looking to do with customers. So we've got quite a bit of work to do with that. We reviewed our complaints policy well before the Ombudsman asked us to, and I've shared that recently with the Chief Execs Group on the WhatsApp that Campbell Keller pulled together. And we're open and transparent on ours. Our complaints went through the roof when we did that, made it easier for people to complain. So in terms of the customers, they've got to be at the heart and soul of what we do, and it is a work in progress, but we're not shying away from that.
Brilliant. And actually, I think that's a really good place to end this conversation of it. The customers being at the heart and soul of what you really do.
No, absolutely.
I just want to thank you very much for today, John. It's been really interesting talking to you. I think what's really come through is that element around strategic partnership and having the tenants at the core of what you do, which is something without doubt it's going to be great to focus on in the future. But clearly, from a Prima perspective, it's something that you've already done a lot of work around and will continue focusing on in the future. So thank you very much for your time today.
No, thank you, Ahmed. Thank you. Take care.